Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Monday. It is March 2nd. It's 2020. We have 7 basketball games to talk about here on today's slate. I'm joined by my buddy Kyle Murray. How are you doing, my friend?
Good, man. Yeah, NBA weekend DFS is so hectic and crazy, so I'm excited to get back to the weekday stuff and nice little slate here.
Yeah, like I've talked about this so many times on this podcast. I feel like this year and in years past, like these 6 to 8 game NBA slates are like my jam. Like
Yeah,
these are the slates that I really like. And I don't feel like I don't play NBA on the weekends, so I don't feel like coming back and looking at like a 7 game slate is like overwhelming. So like this is a perfect slate for me to get this week started.
yeah, for sure. I agree.
All right, let's jump in. We get started here with Houston at New York taking on the Knicks. 230.5 total here. Houston favored by 8.5. No injury news on Houston. On the Knicks side of things, Bullock is questionable and DSJ is already ruled out. Let's start here with Houston. Westbrook has been playing really well here recently. Back-to-back 60-point games, over 55 fantasy points in 5 of the last 7 games, and just kind of hanging out at 10K. What do you like here for Houston?
Yeah, it just feels like Westbrook has been the guy for fantasy for, man, it feels like almost a month now, maybe even more. So, yeah, Westbrook, obviously a good spot here against the Knicks. Defense isn't great, especially with Ntilikina, I believe, still sidelined or banged up, or it looks like he actually came back last game. So, Ntilikina's not getting the minutes at least, so that always benefits the guards on the other side here. So, I think Westbrook would be the guy that I would lean to over Harden despite the price. And it's a $500 difference, but I still think I would lean Westbrook just the way things have been. I don't think it's anything too in-depth other than Harden's just not making shots right now. I do think, if Harden gets going, he could obviously outscore Westbrook from a fantasy perspective any given night. But for me, I'm just going to stick with Westbrook. He can get it done in more ways than it seems Harden can right now. On FanDuel, they're only $100 different, and it comes down to a little bit more of lineup construction where you have to decide which position you want to give away for the stud. So obviously, it's going to come down to which spot you want to give a pay up there. So for me on FanDuel, it's going to be come down to more of a later decision where I feel like I can fill out those spots better for me. So right now, those two alone, I'm going Westbrook.
Yeah, Westbrook, I think he's fine. I think Covington, his price is kind of caught up to the production. His rebounds are up, ever since joining Houston, Capella being shipped off. Like Covington's rebounds are definitely up here. So I don't hate him. I think this is a good matchup just in general. Going up against New York. PJ Tucker, I know nobody likes playing PJ Tucker, but he's going to play a ton of minutes here up against New York if this game stays close. What do you like here for the Knicks?
Yeah, it's a good spot here. I just don't really love the Knicks too much. I guess Randall is a good option, and usually he's contrarian. Alfred Payton has been playing really well. The price is up. He had a down game last game, but other than that, he went for 40 points 2 of the last 4, and then 30 plus. Seems like 5 or 6 games in a row after that. So a lot of good games for Alfred Payton before the last one. So you can go back to him here. The price is up a little bit, but these guys should be contrarian. The Knicks usually are contrarian. Nobody really wants to play the Knicks, but it's a really good matchup. So I like Randall here and Alfred Payton a little bit as well.
All right. Yeah, I talked about Randall. I think it was Friday. I think it was Friday. They were playing Philly. When they were playing Philly, I thought he was really interesting. He had a really good game the other day. I don't mind him in this spot. I don't think Robinson's the worst play. It really depends on like what they do here. Like,
Yeah.
are they going to force the Houston team to go big? Because they kind of did that last time. Robinson played like 26 minutes. And like Randall ended up, I think, playing like 28 minutes. So if they force Houston to go big, they don't really have anybody to match up with Robinson. So I think Robinson's an interesting tournament play. I think RJ Barrett, if he gets the minutes here, he has upside. You just got to keep shooting, rookie. Got to shoot.
Yeah, and he played the same Houston team like a week ago. That was without Alfred Payton, so he got a few more looks there, but did really well in the first quarter and then in the first half, and then he kind of died down in the second half. So it's obviously a good spot for him, and I can get behind RJ Barrett in this one.
All right, we got Portland at Orlando, 223.5 total here. Orlando favored by 7 in this game. Collins, Hood, Lillard all remain out. Simons is questionable. Minu and Isaac remain out for the Orlando Magic. Let's start here with Portland. What are we looking at here for the Trailblazers?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can play CJ McCollum here, even though the price is high. I know he struggled a little bit over the last two games, or the game before last. But the last game against Atlanta, he's going to play a ton of minutes, be around 40. With this new price tag, you do need him around 45, 50 points. So that is a little bit of a question mark there. But we've seen this Orlando team play a little faster over the last week or so, and they're trying to put up more points, and in turn they're giving up more points as well. I like Gary Trent in this one. He is a guy who most of his production comes from scoring. Last game he played 30 minutes, was in foul trouble a little bit, scored 15 points and only had 14 fantasy points because he had 3 turnovers and didn't really do anything outside of the scoring. But maybe if he gets a good game where he gets a few steals or a few rebounds, I think he has the upside, and he's going to play a ton of minutes. And if Simon sits, the minutes should be even better for Gary Trent. I think he's a good value option in this one.
Yeah, we look at the last 5 games from the Orlando Magic since February 15th, the middle of last month, or they're playing at the 9th fastest pace in the NBA. Just so just kind of reiterate what you were talking about. So, so for me, like CJ McCollum is a guy that can put up 50 in this spot. I think obviously if you look at the last game these two teams played, he put up 50 in that game. He played 37 minutes and put up 50. And that was with Lillard. So, McCollum has upside. I think he has a really strong floor here. It is only a 7-game slate. We do have, a really juicy game that we're going to talk about. That Memphis-Atlanta game is super juicy. But I think, like, if we're looking for, solid floor, I think you have to, consider that. And, Whiteside, he's scored at least 47 fantasy points in 5 straight games without Lillard. So, consistency and floor. Ceiling probably not as high for Whiteside as it is for McCollum. Just usage and just pure volume of shot attempts. Outside of those two guys, like, man, I keep playing Ariza. Like, I'm a sucker for Trevor Ariza. Like, he's cheap and he plays 37 minutes a night.
Yeah.
So, like,
yeah, and he's kind of the opposite of Gary Trent, where he can get it going with rebounds and steals and whatnot. He's actually averaging almost 1.5 steals per game, and obviously his upside for more of that when you consider the past whatever games he's been playing as a Trailblazer after the trade. He's been getting more minutes, so I'm sure his steal count is higher in those games. So I actually like him a little bit as well. I think he's a really good play on Fanduel where you get an extra point for those steals. But yeah, I'm with you. He's going to play a ton of minutes, and he's got that steal upside. McCollum over the last 5 games is a 34% usage, and it'll be interesting to see where his ownership falls because we do have like pretty good amount of studs and a lot of studs at the guard position. We have Luka, we have Trey Young, we have Westbrook and Harden. So I wouldn't be surprised to see McCollum come in lower owned, especially on DraftKings. And so maybe we get him at low ownership, and that would be something that I think would be interesting.
Large field tournament play only if Simons ends up sitting. Mario Hezonja, 3K, played 15 or 13 minutes the other night after Simons left the game. Simon plays around 25 minutes. If Mario played 20 minutes at 3K, shot the ball decently here against his former team, the team that drafted him. He's just a 3K crapper. Take a random large field tournament shot. He puts up 21 fantasy points and gets you 7x and plays 20 minutes and shoots the ball well. He's going to be like 3 or 4% owned here.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you.
On the Orlando Magic side of things, like Aaron Gordon has been playing really good basketball here recently. We talked about them pushing the pace a little bit. He struggled in that San Antonio game just to get it going overall, which kind of lowered his price tag a little bit. But over 50 fantasy points now in 4 of the last 6 games. The price is caught up. We don't shy away from big man against Portland. They allow the most fantasy points per game to opposing power forwards. What are we looking at here for the Magic?
Yeah, I'm glad to see Aaron Gordon come down to earth a little bit because for a minute I was getting really confused about what was going on. Once he posted the triple-double, I was thinking that someone else was playing in his uniform. But yeah, he's been playing a ton of minutes.
He's pissed that he didn't win the dunk contest.
Yeah, that's true. But he was doing pretty well before the All-Star break as well. A 45 and then 54-point game before that too. So he was just really turning it up. I'm okay with playing him here. I really feel like people are afraid of this price tag for him. And then once they see that he kind of busted in that last game against the Spurs. You mentioned it. Great matchup against Portland. And power forward, you're going to have mellow defense on you for the majority of this game. So, yeah, I can definitely get behind it. If he's going to be one of those super popular plays where people are catching on to a trend and he gets, becomes a mega chalk, I probably won't touch it. It is Aaron Gordon after all. We have seen him really have bad games earlier in the year and earlier in his career. So I'm hoping he's not chalk, but if he's going to be lower owned, I like it a lot.
All right. Outside of him, though, I don't hate Vooch here. I think it's okay. I don't think it's the greatest spot. Fournier has some upside. Ross has some upside. Ross has actually been shooting the ball really well here recently, over 50% from the field in 3 of the last 4 games. Ross is taking the shots right now. The Magic are letting him play. So I don't hate Terrence Ross here. I could see this game going kind of small too, especially with the bench. So I could definitely see Terrence Ross, hitting value here. And Fultz's price is way down, but the production for Fultz has gone down with the emergence of Ross taking a lot more shots and Gordon doing more. So Fultz has been playing good. It's not like he's crushing fantasy value.
Yeah, definitely.
Utah at Cleveland, 219 total here. Utah favored by 8.5. No injury news that I'm seeing here on the Utah side of things, but the whole team is out for Cleveland here. Exum's out, Garland's out, McKinney is out, and Tristan Thompson is out. Let's start here with Utah. We always like playing teams when they're facing Cleveland. Cleveland allows the most fantasy points per game to opposing point guards. They're top 10. As far as shooting guards, the second most to small forwards. They're just a team that, overall they're allowing the second most fantasy points per game. So I think we look at a Donovan Mitchell here. If we're going more like a balanced build and we're not playing Giannis on this slate or maybe a Luka, if we're going balanced, I think we look at Mitchell.
Yeah, I like Mitchell here a lot. Obviously you mentioned it, good matchup, and people have been pretty down on him over the past couple of weeks. His ownership really hasn't gotten very high in any slate at all. Obviously, it could change considering he has a really good matchup in this one. But, I just want to reiterate everything you said. I think he's a good play from basically all the points that you made. So I like Mitchell a pretty good amount. From the Jazz side of things, the rest of them, I like Bogdanovich a little bit. I prefer him on FanDuel where he's a little bit cheaper. Probably won't play Gobert here. I just don't really love Gobert. A lot of his production comes in blocks. And, it can be a game like last game where he gets 4 blocks and 3 steals and, does pretty well because of those. But for the most part, if he's going to be popular, especially in a matchup against Cleveland, I won't have too much trouble fading Gobert. Just don't really love playing him very much. So for me, be Mitchell and Bogdanovich.
So should Mike Conley be a guy that we should be looking at in cash games here? He's a 6x machine right now.
Yeah, as soon as they moved him back from the starting lineup for good, after he kind of bounced back from that second injury, the minutes have been really strong for him. I know people were a little scared once they decided to move Royce O'Neal into the starting lineup and they took out Ingles, but the minutes have been so strong, so I can get behind Conley. The ceiling, it never really feels like you're going to get a 50-point game from him, but you mentioned he's more of a cash game play, so I like it a lot as cash.
Yeah, if you end up in that range and you end up on him, I'm not going to talk you off of it. Jingles, moving to that second unit, I don't think is the worst thing for him either. On the Cleveland side of things, obviously a lot of injuries here, a lot of key injuries. I think the thing that we need to note here is, Andre Drummond played 36 minutes against the Pacers the other night. I'm pretty sure Thompson didn't play in that game, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I was looking at it. Like I said, I don't play NBA on the weekends. It's a tough matchup going up against Rudy Gobert, but Andre Drummond at 35 minutes at 8K, I don't care who he's playing against.
Yeah, last time I checked the defensive efficiencies compared to last year, Gobert was 4 points worse this year than he was last year. So he's still, a solid defender, but so far this year, he hasn't been as elite as he has in years past. And a lot of that will come down to Utah isn't as good of a defensive team as they were over the last 2 years. But yeah, if Drummond's going to play mid-30s minutes, I don't really care about the matchup too much either. This is a guy who, when he was getting those minutes in Detroit, he was 10K, 10.5K. So yeah, 8K here. I love it. I think he makes his team better too. So I think that'll help this game stay close when he's getting the minutes. So yeah, he's probably my main target here. You could take a shot at Nance if you think maybe he takes a few minutes away from Drummond. He would be probably a good leverage play. But other than that, I think it's just Drummond for me. A little bit interested in Kevin Porter Jr., when they take out guys like Exum and McKinney, and now Garland's out as well, he kind of has to play. So I think he's a pretty solid target here as well. I think he gets a bigger bump than a guy like Sexton does, and he's cheaper. So I'd rather play Kevin Porter Jr. here in this one.
Yeah, the other guy that because Porter's already playing a bunch of minutes with the injuries and stuff.
Yeah.
Is this a spot they play Deladova more?
Yeah, I think that could be a good one. It's really going to come down to if they're comfortable with playing Kevin Porter Jr. at a point guard type spot, which it'd be tough to say because they have gone big, over the past couple of weeks after the Drummond trade. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Kevin Porter get point guard minutes. But yeah, I mean, we've seen Dellavedova really pick up minutes after the Exum injury. He's played 18, 19, and 25. So the floor kind of feels like that. And obviously he has upside for more if they decide to give him more minutes with the Garland injury. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Dellavedova play 28, 29, maybe even 30 minutes here. I don't know how much of a fantasy asset he is at that, but he does, he doesn't really scale back from shooting or anything. And he's a pretty good passer, so he's pretty active. So don't hate it by any means.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it I was looking at it before we got started. I was trying to figure out where the minutes are going to go. And it's like Kevin Porter's playing low to mid 30s a night. You bump him up, say 4 minutes. He plays 35 minutes. It's still, 25 minutes to go around, for finding out where they're going to go. Is it going to be Matt Mooney or is it going to be Deladova? I feel like it's going to be Deladova to me. And you give Deladova 25 minutes at 3,400, he's a guy that's in play. Should we have mentioned Jordan Clarkson on the other side of this game, pure revenge? It's just his price and the minutes are just not there right now.
Right, yeah. I think for me, it's if Conley's out, I love Clarkson, but other than that, you're really relying on him just be massively productive while he's on the floor, just considering he's not going to get those 28, 29 minutes. And he can be massively productive here. He has a good match against Cleveland and whatnot, but I'm sure we're going to come across guys that just feel a little bit better about rather than just counting on super efficiency purposes. But back to the Cleveland side, I think a guy who could pick up minutes is Cedi Osman. If they are comfortable with maybe him bringing the ball up or even Kevin Porter. This was a guy early in the year when we saw Love out, we saw Nance out for a little bit. He was playing 40 minutes a night for a week or two. So he could get massive minutes here. I don't think they would be too afraid to do that. So I think Hammer Dellavedova would probably benefit the most minutes-wise.
All right. Moving on. I feel like that's the best we could break that down night before. Milwaukee at Miami. No total in this game. It's a back-to-back for Milwaukee. Chris Middleton didn't play Sunday, so we're going to put him as questionable here. On the Miami side of things, Hero and Myers Leonard are both still out. Starting with Milwaukee, this one's tough because obviously it's just going to really depend on if Middleton plays or not for me. Because I don't want to play Giannis at 11-4 today.
Yeah, I agree. The matchup isn't amazing, and that I kind of like that with Giannis. I feel like the closer the games are, the better he's going to be. Obviously with the minutes and whatnot.
Agreed.
I mean, I love playing Giannis in tough matchups because usually people are down on him, and that's when you get him at lower-ish ownership. But one thing, I just noticed that all of his great games come on the weekend when he's not on the main slate. 77 points in the Sunday game against Charlotte, and he played 35 minutes in that one. The team only scored 95 points, and he just went off. So it just shows that as long as he's getting minutes and the game's close, it doesn't really matter anything about the matchup. So if Middleton's out, I talked about this when he was out during the Oklahoma City game, but it just feels like it's harder for them to take him off the floor in close games. In close games, we've seen him even get, 29, 30 minutes just because they have guys like Middleton and Bledsoe to fall on. So I do like it that he's out. He doesn't really get a massive bump usage-wise or anything like that. But the guy that I like is Dante DiVincenzo from a usage and permanent standpoint. He hasn't really showed in the last two games, but he played 28 minutes in this game when the game stayed close. So if this is going to be a game that we're counting on being close, Dante DiVincenzo and Antetokounmpo are probably my two favorites from the Bucks side.
Yeah, if Middleton's out, I think you have to be looking at Giannis here. 38.2% usage, 1.88 fantasy points per minute. If you're projecting a close game and thinking this game stays close, obviously you have to look at him. It's just and they blew the Thunder out, the other night. So, like, he just didn't have to play the minutes. He was on his way.
Yep.
He was definitely on his way. So, the other guy that I don't mind here is Eric Bledsoe, but, like, the minutes have been super concerning for me. So, like, he's really, like, a tournament play only. He's a guy that, like, I'm a little worried about the minutes. The only thing that I'm thinking here is, like, it's a back-to-back. Is George Hill going to play 25 minutes again on the second end of a back-to-back? He's done it recently, so maybe, you could potentially see, like, Pat Connaughton play, like, 25 minutes too. So a lot of minutes to go around for Milwaukee. I like the DiVincenzo call at 4,500. But, again, it's just like, where's it going to come from? It's going to come from Giannis. That's where it's going to come from if Middleton doesn't play. So, the Miami side of things, like, if you're playing Giannis, if Middleton's out and you want to run it back, I think you could run it back here with Bam. I think he's a guy that's really interesting in this spot. We have a lot of center plays that we've already kind of talked about. I think it's a really tough spot for Butler. I like the Bam upside more than I like the Butler upside in this matchup. What's your thoughts here?
Yeah, I love playing Bam, but I think it's a tough matchup for both of them. And if Middleton does sit, he's kind of their better perimeter defender outside of, compared to Bledsoe. And, it's hard to really love either of them, but I think I would just take the guard here and take Butler. I think the position and also the salary difference, $600 cheaper on DraftKings. I think he's like $800 cheaper on FanDuel. So obviously they play a completely different position, so that won't matter too much when it comes down to that. But when it comes down to spending, I think Butler is the guy who I prefer. Obviously a pace-up spot here, despite it being a tough defensive matchup. The pace-up could be beneficial for both of these guys. And I think I would just lean Butler purely because you just get a discount.
Yeah, like, I completely understand that. I think Kendrick Nunn at 5,400 here with Tyler Hero already ruled out. In close games, he's been getting the minutes. He struggled in that Dallas game the other night. Like, I didn't watch that game, so I don't know why he didn't get a ton of minutes in that game, but it was the first end of the back-to-back, and Hero was out, so maybe they just kind of limited him a little bit. But I think Kendrick Nunn, at his price, he's definitely worth a look here, especially if Middleton doesn't play. And, Goran Dragic, over 30 fantasy points in 4 of the last 5 games at 5,500. He's another guy that's probably going to get you probably 6x here. I don't know if he goes 7 or 8x, but it really just kind of depends on what type of roster build you're looking at today.
Yeah, I agree. I think you can really have interest in Dragic, Nunn, Crowder, and even Robinson as well. It's just going to come down to which one's going to really have the big game. They're all going to play decent minutes. Obviously, it could scale between games who gets the most out of those 4. But, with Hero out, all 4 of them are pretty much in line for good work because they play Olynyk a little bit at the center, but then Bam will play center the majority of the game, so they go a little bit smaller. With Crowder at the 4, so I like Crowder a little bit in this one. I like his price on FanDuel more than I do on DraftKings, but I think he would be the one I would lean out of those guys. But you could really, like, if you're MMing, maybe set a rule with you only want one of those 4 or maybe 2 if you're feeling really happy-go-lucky about this game. But for me, I'd lean Crowder.
All right, Memphis at Atlanta, 238.5 total here. Atlanta favored by 1 in this game. Clark and Triple J are both out on Memphis side. Bembre, Capella, Deadman are out. Cam Reddish is questionable. Man, oh man, this is a game that is going to be up and down, back and forth. 2 of the fastest teams in the NBA. 2 teams that don't like that whole thing called defense. Atlanta ranks 28th in defensive efficiency this season, Memphis 18th. So let's start here with Memphis. Like, 238.5. I'd probably take the over in this game. It's just like, who don't I play? Like, you're gonna that's where I'm at. Like, I think the guy we potentially start here with is Dylan Brooks. I think he's one of the best value plays on the slate. 5,300, going to play 35 minutes to 40 minutes in this game, and it's against Atlanta.
Yeah, I like Brooks a lot. You mentioned it. It's really hard to find a guy in this game that you might not like. For Memphis, Valanciunas and Jang are going to somewhat kind of chop these 48 minutes with Valanciunas getting a lean, but he's played 31 and 32 minutes over the last 2 games. So I like him a lot. It's always risky with him, and the ownership might be a little bit high on him. because it's a really good matchup, and obviously it's a game everyone's going to want to get a part of. So I don't mind if you fade because, we do see him play 25 or 26 minutes here and there, sometimes even less. But he is, enticing because he does so well per minute basis. I played John Morant every game except for last game that Brandon Clark and Jackson have been out. So, of course, last game he goes off. I like him a lot. I haven't checked his FanDuel price yet. Let me check that real quick. 6.9, I think that's way too low, even though it's still $1,000 more than it was last game. Obviously, he gets a big boost after the big game against the Lakers. But, yeah, I think Morant, Brooks, Valanciunas are my three favorites. And Kyle Anderson, man, don't love it, but he's going to play 30 minutes in a game against the Hawks where they have turned the ball over a lot and give up a lot of block shots. So can't be afraid of that one. I guess he's decent value play. Would likely be was cheaper, but I think I can get behind that one still.
Yeah, Melton's going to play 25 minutes in this game as well. So, Josh Jackson, the guy that I probably wouldn't play here. I think Kyle Anderson, like you mentioned, he's going to play 30 minutes at 4,400. There was a time a few years ago we were playing Kyle Anderson a bunch when he was with the Spurs. So we know he has the talent. A lot of injuries has definitely slowed him down for sure. But I love the Valanciunas call. He's been crushing it here with these guys out, and we already know Clark and Jackson out. So, if Valanciunas gets 30 minutes against Atlanta, just open up those ceiling points because it's the ceiling's coming down. The Atlanta side, obviously, if we're looking at 2-3 Memphis guys, we're definitely looking at Trey Young, in my opinion. My other favorite play here is Hunter. Like, he's going to be a guy that I'll be way overweight on in this spot, especially if we get news that Reddish doesn't play. But out of the dark the other night, Kevin Huerter finally got it going. What are you looking at here for Atlanta?
Yeah, man, I play Kevin Huerter every single slate, so I'm definitely playing him in this one here. I always get, jokes made about that because I do play him often. But when you get a guy that's going to play 35 minutes a night in a close game and everything goes well, it's hard to not like it. And now he gets a good matchup again against the Grizzlies here. So especially if Cam Reddish ends up missing this one, he's going to have to play a ton of minutes. And then DeAndre Hunter, same thing. If Reddish is out, he's going to have to play a ton of minutes again. And they actually, the last game, they put in Reddish into the starting lineup. So if he is able to play, he's viable as well. So I think you can play all three of those guys because they still have Bembry out. And then they're really short at center. So Capella Dedmon's still out. So John Collins is playing a lot at the center. They're running a little bit of a bigger lineup, or a smaller lineup, sorry, with the Reddish and Hunter starting at the 3 or 4. So I like those three shooting guard, small forward guys right there. And then obviously Trey Young. I think he might be one of the more popular studs here, even though we do have Westbrook and Harden on the slate. People love to play Trey Young, so I can get behind that. John Collins, I always get him wrong. I always play Trey Young whenever he has a big game, but I think he's in a decent spot here, this one too. I mean, you mentioned it. It's hard to not like guys in this one. I think my favorites would be to find Hunter or Herter. If Reddish is out, I would love to play those guys. They're just going to have to play a ton of minutes.
Yeah, like Reddish sits, you can just go ahead and I'll tell you Hunter is going to be in my lineup. So There you go. You can lock that in for me. Yeah, obviously this is game. Obviously there's a lot of value here. There's a lot of great plays in this game. This is going to be one of the top game stacks, but feels like every night we talk about that and like we go and we open up the ownership on the next day and it's like, oh, well, Memphis, Atlanta, not as high as I thought. So, that's kind of what I'm hoping for here because I really like this game. Dallas at Chicago, no total in this one. It's a back-to-back for Dallas, correct? Right?
Yep.
Luka didn't play Sunday. We'll have to kind of see if he plays here. They're obviously being very, very careful with Luka. I didn't see any other injury news come out. I know Brunson still dealing with the injuries. It sounds like he's not going to play again this season from the last thing that I read. Maybe he does. Willie Cauley-Stein, he's supposed to come back for this game, was the report that I read before we got started here. On the Chicago side of things, Dunn is out, Hutchinson's out, Cornette's out, Markkanen's doubtful. Otto Porter Jr. is questionable. He might actually be back and play in this game. We'll have to kind of see. But the fact that he's not doubtful or out is, just something that we needed to note. So let's start here with Dallas. Obviously, we're waiting on the Luka news. If Luka doesn't play, Porzingis at 8,600. He just again, we're just looking at like more of that like balanced build because this is a guy that's coming off of a 75 fantasy point game. Obviously, had 5 blocks in that game, but with Luka off the floor, it's just hard not to look at a guy like Porzingis.
Yeah, originally when Luka hurt his hand in the game against the Spurs and then came out but came back in, and then he was questionable for the Miami game. I thought it might have been just he's just on the injury report just to note it, but it might actually be somewhat serious, or maybe they're just giving him a day off. Not really sure. But that game against Miami, it was like National Slovenian Day or something in Dallas, I guess. They had like 1,000 people from Slovenia come out for the Dragic versus Doncic game. So maybe he is actually hurt. Maybe it was just a day off. Not really sure. But if he sits, you gotta love Porzingis. 75 fantasy points in that game on Sunday with Luka out. We saw Dalen Wright get into the starting lineup with Brunson injured as well and played 32 minutes, which is huge for Wright because that's the big thing. He's never really gotten the minutes at all, even when Luka misses games because of Brunson. But take them out, and Wright's getting massive minutes. I would like him a ton if Luka sits here again. And if Luka plays, I think I would like him here. I think he'd probably be the lowest owned of the bunch considering he has the hand injury. We got Trey Young, we have Harden, Westbrook all on the slate. I think we could see Luka come in pretty low owned. The matchup against Chicago is actually tougher than people assume because Chicago sucks so bad, but they're actually decent defensively. But with Chris Dunn off the floor, they take a massive hit defensively. So I would like Luka a lot, especially if he's going to be low owned.
Yeah, the thing, man, it's just so interesting. Like Dallas is in that 7th seed. They are 8 games up on Memphis. They're looking like they're going to play the Nuggets or the Clippers right now. So keeping Luka and Porzingis healthy for that, series, that's what they're. I feel like that's what they're more focused on right now. So is this a spot where like we see them flip flop? Porzingis sits and Luka plays. Like it's the second end of the back to back. They are very comfortable where they're at right now. Like they could make a run and run up to like the 5th seed and play I think the Rockets or somewhere along like one of those teams. Like, but I feel like right now you're safe in the West with 37 wins over the Memphis Grizzlies, and you're kind of locked into that spot. So I feel like they're just like, let's just get there and we'll show everybody what we have in the playoffs. Is kind of what I'm getting at. So just going to really have to pay attention to this injury news because it wouldn't shock me. It really wouldn't shock me if we like open up this slate and like as news starts to come out that like Porzingis sits and Lucas sits. So and that if that happened, obviously it changes everything that you just got done talking about and everything that we're going to write up in the morning when we're doing premium content because
Yeah.
we probably won't get that news until later in the day. So Chicago side of things, like it sounds like Zach LaVine's going to play. Obviously they're dealing with a bunch of injuries too. I don't think we see Otto Porter play. Maybe he does, but I highly doubt it. What are you looking at here for Chicago?
Yeah, if Porter does play, I assume he'd be extremely limited considering it was a foot injury. Wendell Carter came back, played. He's on a pretty strict minutes limit. I think they limited him at 20, and it was pretty strict apparently. He played 18 last game and did pretty well in them, but I just don't think I can get to him. But for me, Kobe White has been on just a tear, so I can get behind playing White here in this one. He's going to play around 30 minutes with upside for a little bit more if he gets hot. So I think White would probably be my first, I guess, priority, especially if Dallas is going to have some injuries and we're going to be playing guys from there. I think Kobe White would be a good person to bring it back with. You can play Satoransky here as well, but all these red Q and O's on this Chicago team makes it hard to get my head around right now. But obviously, a few of these guys are probable, but I think White would be my first instinct lean right now.
Yeah, man, like that's like if Luka and Porzingis sit, like then I have a lot more interest in this spot just because I do think that would open up some stuff. It's just tough when you're looking at, like you said, when you're looking at this game as a whole here, it's hard to get behind some of these guys. Man, this is one of those ones, I hate to say it, but like this is one of those ones that's really hard to break down the night before. Because because you just got to do some digging. Like the Chicago rotations are impossible to figure out right now. Like Zach LaVine would be my favorite play from Chicago. And again, it goes back to that balance build that I've been talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think Levine is definitely an interesting play, and obviously he's going to be the guy here, play a ton of minutes. But we've talked about a handful of shooting guards already. We've talked about Mitchell, Butler, McCollum, obviously
Oh
the
yeah.
higher end guards as well. So, and we're going to talk about even DeRozan with Aldridge doubtful for tomorrow as well. So, just a lot of guys, and he's not really necessarily cheap. So I think he's fairly priced. I don't think he's expensive. If he's going to be super contrarian, I would like him more. And I think if this game obviously becomes more appealing with the Dallas side of things shaking out the way it could, I could definitely get behind that. But it's just tough. There's a lot of shooting guards here tonight.
A lot of plays in general on this
Yeah.
slate. Let's finish it out. Indiana at San Antonio. Lamb is out. LMA is doubtful. Poto is out. Starting here with the Pacers side of things, obviously we're going to be talking a lot more about the San Antonio side of things here in a minute. What are we looking at here on the Pacers side?
Yeah, you just said Lamb is out. I didn't even recognize that. And then I looked, and he tore his ACL, meniscus, and broke a bone in his femur. That's a tough
Yeah,
one.
he's been out for a while.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
Oh,
think it happened like middle of last week.
I didn't even realize how bad the injury was. That's tough. But yeah, I think guys that I would probably prefer here is a guy like Brogdon here, 6'9". Warren has kind of turned it up a little bit, scored 30 points in the last game, and the minutes have been really strong over the last 2 games. Obviously, he gets a little bit of boost with Lamb being out. But yeah, I think the main guy for me would be Brogdon. Sabonis you can go to here, but I think he's just priced up in a pretty good amount. And, obviously, if we do have a guy like Porzingis available with no Luka, I think I would obviously prefer that. So I think Brogdon would be a priority for me in this one. From the Pacers side, I think he'd be a pretty strong play, actually.
Yeah, obviously I think TJ Warren, he had a good game against Cleveland the other night. But man, we were playing Oladipo at that cheap price tag for a while, and like he wasn't doing anything. I don't think I can play him in this spot. I just think there's better plays on this slate. San Antonio side of things, obviously let's just start with DeRozan. He's too cheap. I know it's a tough matchup against the Pacers. I get it. They're a good defensive team. He's too cheap. DeRozan at 7,300 with no LaMarcus Aldridge. He's just too cheap. I know he hasn't really crushed so far in this role, but he's too cheap.
Yep, I agree. I think DeRozan is a really good play. I think this is actually a pretty interesting game overall. A lot of injuries on this slate, so maybe this game goes a little bit overlooked. I don't think DeRozan will by any means, but I think maybe a guy like Rudy Gay does. Play 30 minutes, obviously, with Jakob Poeltl. I think he did something with his knee, so he's going to be out. So I like Gay a pretty good amount in this one. It just feels better now that you can kind of count on him to play a pretty good amount of minutes. Trey Lyles played 40 minutes last game. It'll be interesting to see if they have any kind of change to their gameplay now that they didn't have a mid-game injury sprung on them. But I think he's going to be in there for a ton of minutes. So I like those two a lot from a value standpoint. Eubanks played 16 minutes in the second half after starting the second half. So he might be a very minimum price play that you could consider. But I think I would just prefer to go to Lyles or Gay. They're a little bit more expensive, but if you can make that happen, I would just rather do that. So, yeah, I think DeRozan, Lyles, and Gay are all 3 really good plays. And you can play Murray here in this one as well. But I think I would just stick with those first 3 that I mentioned.
Yeah, what's crazy here is when you're looking at this spot for San Antonio, it's not like they can necessarily go small in this game. The Pacers, they'll use Sabonis, they'll use Warren, they'll use Turner. So when I'm looking at this spot in general, I really like this spot. For Trey Lyles, I think that he's going to play a ton of minutes in this game. Obviously, we're just going to have to kind of wait and see if he is starting or not. But yeah, I think this is a great spot to play him in, at 4,800. Is there anybody else here from this game that you like?
I think that's pretty much it.
All right, let's play the morning grind game, and then we'll get out of here. We'll start it off with favorite play under 5K to 7X. Who are you looking at here?
Yeah, let's just stay in the same game. I'm going to go Rudy Gay. It's a tough choice. Honestly, I think they'd both be in this game. It'd be between Gay and Lyles for me. Gay's a little bit cheaper, so it makes that that 7x a little bit easier to get to. And also, I think he's going to be a guy who gets up a few more shots. So I like Gay. I think he's not necessarily a safe call 7x, but I think he's a really good value play. So I'll go with him.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the fact that I feel like somebody or two people will sit here for Dallas. I'm going to go DeLeon Wright at 4,600. If both of those guys play, Wright's probably a terrible play, but we've seen him so many times just rack up the rebounds, rack up assists where he doesn't need to score a ton of points to hit value. So I think Wright is a guy you're looking at. If I didn't make the rule where it had to be under 5K, this answer would have been very easy. I would have taken DeAndre Hunter, but got to stick to my own rules. Over 8K to go under 5X. Who's your bust today?
This is tough because I like a pretty good amount of these. I'm going to go with Vucevic, though. I think I'm going to be playing Aaron Gordon for the first time this year. So I'm going to go with it being a Gordon game and therefore Vooch busts a little bit. So I'm going to go with that.
I hate that. Like, I am going to go Whiteside here. He's been so consistent here recently, but like pretty much for the same reasons. Like, I don't like that. Like, I don't mind McCollum. I just don't like the 9K range in general today. Like, I want to either go up to Westbrook or Young or Harden or Giannis, or go down to Aaron Gordon or some of these other guys that, we talked about, maybe Porzingis, Sabonis. So, like, I'm not in love with the 9K guys outside of maybe, like, McCollum, but that's kind of where I'm leaning. Favorite 6X play, who do you got today?
I tried to find someone that, I wouldn't get made fun of for, but I'm going Kevin Huerter, man. Just love the matchup too much. If Reddish sits, the minutes will just be undeniable for Huerter, even more than they already are. So, yeah, Kevin Huerter for me.
All right, I'm going to go with Big Sexy, Big Val. Valanciunas, 6,800, going up here against Atlanta. We talked about with Jackson and Clark out. The minutes have been very consistent here for Valanciunas recently. Let's just hope it happens. Like, this is a team that's fighting for a playoff spot, so I'm hoping that, like, this is a game they want to go out and win. They want to beat Atlanta. Atlanta doesn't want to win these games, so I said that the other day, and Atlanta went out and they blew out the Nets or something. So, like, I was way wrong. Let's get weird. GPP play of the day. Who do you got?
I think this is pretty weird. I know people have been playing him a little bit in the past, but I'm going to go with D'Anthony Melton. He's never a guy that's going to play a ton of minutes, but around 25 is typically enough for him. He's a pretty solid permanent guy, obviously a really good matchup. A good spot for him as a player that he is with who can rack up steals and whatnot. So I think he's pretty interesting, and I think he'll be extremely contrarian, even though he is in a very popular, from what we're assuming now, a game. So I like Melton a little bit.
I'm going to go Mario Hezonja as my Let's Get Weird GPP play of the day. Again, if you're even considering playing this crazy play, make sure Simons is out. That is the only way that if Simons plays and you guys start tweeting at me, I'm not even going to respond. Not listening. All right, game selection question, FanDuel, DraftKings, doesn't matter, cash games, tournaments. What's standing out to you today?
Yeah, so basically how I shape my lineups for the day is I'll either do one lineup or probably 3 to 5. And I think today's going to be a slate where there's a lot of plays that I like. So I'm going to do 3 lineups. And so my favorite contest is the 3-entry max, $65 buy-in NBA charge on FanDuel. I like it, obviously 3 max, 245 people. So the field's not too big, 3,000 in first. So I like the payout structure a little bit. Could be better, obviously, like most can be. But I'm thinking that 3 lineups is going to be the way I go tonight. So I'm going to go with that contest.
All right, I'm going to plug RotoGrinders here. We're going to stick to FanDuel today. They have a 100K windmill, $100 single entry series. These are the tournaments that I really like. Like, I really like when the single entry series gets to like that $50 and $100 range. I think it's a lot of fun for people. Min cash is 2x in this tournament, pays 23% of the field. Really wish the top 10 was getting a little less. It's at 38.5%. I talk about it all the time. I really like that number around 30%. I'm a flat payout structure guy. I would much rather build a bankroll over a long period of time with flat payouts than banking a tournament that is paying 25% of the prize pool to first place. So I like this tournament. Min cash is 2x. Pays 265 spots out of 1,142. So single entry series, if you've been playing it, this is a ton of fun. And like I said, I really like when it gets up to these $100 buy-ins. So make sure you're checking that out. Favorite over under, what do you got for me today?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with the over on the Portland and Orlando game. I think the Vegas numbers are typically going to be pretty low on Orlando, but you mentioned it, ninth in pace over the last 5 games. So they're definitely playing up in pace recently. And obviously Portland isn't a great defensive team, and they score at pretty good amounts. So I'm going to go with that. 222 just isn't that high of a number. I think this game could beat that one pretty easily. So I'm going to use the Sharp Side app and go punch that in right now for the over on 222.
Yeah, it actually opened at 223.5. It actually went down a point and a half since it opened. So that's fitting like right into what you were kind of hoping for there. So
yeah.
I lost my streak last week. I got it up to 7. I got to start building it back. I lost my lock on Friday. I took Brooklyn to beat Atlanta. I took Brooklyn minus like 2.5 or 3, whatever it was. I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna lock in the over, even at 240 points. I'm gonna lock in the over in the Memphis Atlanta game. I just don't see a lot of defensive people playing in this game, and this is one I'm gonna lock in. It's already up a point and a half since it opened. So a lot of people are betting the over in this game. I'm gonna join them, and I'm gonna take the over in this one. Lock in 240. Wish I would have noticed it at 238.5 and locked that in, but hey, we're gonna take it at 240 and hope there's a lot of points scored in that one.
Yeah.
Kyle, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I'm all set. Just want to wish everyone good luck.
All right, it's gonna wrap it up here for Monday. We'll be back talking some more hoops tomorrow. Good luck in your contest, and we'll see you then.